we are going to clean up that sewer outfall once and for all. We're going to work with the CRD. We're going to work with the federal government to identify the best, lowest cost solution to provide proper sewage treatment for Greater Victoria, and the province will contribute 1/3 of the funding required to make just that thing happen. There is one caveat, and you're going to be hearing this a lot from me in regard to capital projects in the years ahead. We're going to insist on one condition: that Partnerships BC take a hard look at how that project might be built as a public-private partnership.
We've seen a couple of value for money reports come out in BC in the last year. One was for the Sea to Sky project. It was released in December of 2005. It was done by Partnerships BC. Another for the Canada Line RAB project, more recently released in April 2006. And they claim to demonstrate in those studies value for money, that these are better ways of developing that infrastructure than the public sector comparator, the traditionally procured and financed project. My conclusion is they don't demonstrate that at all, that they don't demonstrate value for money, and they raise very significant questions about where we're going in the future with the billions of dollars of infrastructure that we need to build in this province, in transportation, in healthcare, in education, in the full range of public services and facilities that we require.
In fact, I can tell you today that we're going to be making that a condition of provincially funded capital projects as over $20 million in the future. We know P3s save money, transfer risk, and add great value through design innovations and private sector ingenuity.
First of all, what Gordon Campbell has said is that municipalities don't get to decide anymore how they do their infrastructure. It's now going to be decided by Partnerships BC. And the one thing we know about Partnerships BC is that they're producing information that is just flat out wrong. These savings that are being claimed just aren't true. And the other thing we know is that Partnerships BC not only gets to decide whether or not they're going to be building these things as P3s, but they then get to review their own work and recommend it to the government. This thing's riddled with conflict of interest from start to bottom, and it's riddled with a system that every time Partnerships BC gets one of these things through, they get more bonuses. This is just outrageous. It's an imposition by the provincial government on the way municipalities do things, and it's just plain wrong.
Since we launched the Public-Private Partnership Initiative in 2002, we've actually either started or completed $4.7 billion in new P3 projects. And here's what's happened. We're getting at least $131 million in additional benefits on the Sea to Sky Highway. At least $92 million in additional benefits in the new Canada Line. $39 million in additional benefits in the Abbotsford Hospital and Cancer Care Centre.
Remember that every dollar of expenditure in a healthcare system is a dollar of somebody's income. So whenever you start talking about this program which I am going to introduce will save money somewhere else in the system, you should be asked, whose income do you plan to zap? Who's going to lose as a result of the cuts to costs that will emerge as a result of your favorite program?
$17 million in additional benefits in the $95 million outpatient hospital in Vancouver. $10 million in additional benefits in the Britannia Mine water treatment plant. $25 million in additional benefits in the new William R. Bennett Bridge in Kelowna.
These projects are built on the basis of a very long-term lease with government, and that long-term lease provides the revenues that pays for the capital that the private sector puts in. And that long-term lease establishes a liability. Taxpayers have to pay over the next 25 years, provided the service is there, the infrastructure is developed, they have to pay that lease payment. So it's much like a decision with respect to a house. Instead of buying the house and taking out a mortgage yourself, you have somebody else pay for the house for you. But if you enter into a 25-year lease obligation, or you're stuck with that lease, you have to pay that, you have a long-term liability. And now accountants recognize that there is no magic bullet. There is no off-book financing of public infrastructure. We can't get the private sector to build projects we couldn't otherwise afford. They are, these P3s, a public debt, though in a different form, in the form of a long-term lease, every bit as much as a direct government debt.
First of all, every municipality in this province can borrow money at the best possible interest rate through the Municipal Finance Association. They get the best interest rate in Canada. If you hand the job over to the private sector, they bring in money two different ways. First of all, they borrow money. They pay more to borrow money than a municipality does. Secondly, they bring in money that they invest. The amount of money that you pay through municipal finance to borrow, to do your own work, it's around 5%. The blended rate that you're going to pay on money from a private partner, counting both the amount that they borrow and the amount that they bring as investment, is going to be over 12%. It's a huge financial cost. This is a great day for bankers and investors. It's not a very good day for municipalities.
We will work with the communities in the Northwest to establish a truly integrated port for millions of TEUs that will be developed through public-private partnership in the years ahead.
To the narrow question of the comparison between P3s and traditionally procured and financed projects, the so-called public sector comparator, there's a number of problems with these assessments that are done, these value for money assessments. The first one is the nature and the timing of the comparison that's done. What's done typically in these studies, at least we saw for Sea to Sky and RAV, is an analysis after the P3 contract was concluded. So this isn't a forward-looking decision-making analysis. This is a justification for a decision that's already been made. It's problematic in its own right. But it also compares the costs that are defined in a contract, the P3, with a hypothetical circumstance of a public sector comparator, a traditionally procured project that doesn't exist. So your benchmark, your key benchmark, is an abstraction, is a hypothetical, and it's compared to an actual contract. And that's very problematic. And the RAV value for money assessment really illustrates it well. But for some reason, in the hypothetical public sector comparator, same people operating the system, it's going to be TransLink that's running the service, those additional riders wouldn't appear. So you have a comparison that shows a marginal benefit for the P3, but it's based on an assumption that you're getting all this extra riders if you have the private sector design, build, and operate the facility, TransLink running the service, as compared to TransLink or the provincial government entering into a design build contract, operating and maintaining the system, and financing it itself. Very problematic comparison. You have to take these value for money assessments and recognize that they're not comparing apples with apples, they're comparing a contract with a hypothetical.
As we open our northern and interior ports, we're going to be using P3s to build the new South Fraser Perimeter Truck Bypass Highway. We're going to build the Pitt River Bridge. We're going to twin the Port Mann Bridge to get your resources to your markets.
I don't know if people would overthrow the government, but I think what people want is some kind of real accountability and some kind of real transparency. And as long as you've got Partnerships BC standing between us and the real truth on these things, people are never going to find out what's really going on.
Right. Do you think, Shane, that recall would be a solution to this dilemma?
I'm not sure that recall would be the solution. I think that what needs to happen here is the government needs to be forthright with people. It needs to be transparent. We need to have the discussion in communities about what's really going on. We need the real facts to be on the table. And in that case, I believe the people of British Columbia will, in large numbers, tell this government that they're not meeting the expectations of the public, they're not meeting our priorities, and the government will be dealt with accordingly.